I have been with CPaT since 2014. I have a background in airline training and sales. I have been both a pilot, instructor, examiner, and training manager at the 142 and 121 levels. So I've seen a lot of the challenges that you face every day in creating and managing training. And that's what we're here to talk about. Just so that you can have a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start with a little bit of discussion about CPaT, who we are, what we do. And then I'm going to introduce you to CPaT Invent. Why did we develop it? And a quick summary of the features of it. And then we're going to go and look at, we're going to organize our presentation in the top main features that our clients say that they find the most value in from CPaT Invent, so that you can see some of the best practices and key features that CPaT Invent empowers them with. We'll move over to question and answers towards the end of the session, and then we'll close with follow-ups. And so any questions we don't get to today, we'll follow up with, as well as for any of you who would like to set up a trial or have access to CPaT Invent so you can get your hands on the software. Remember, throughout the presentation, as Amy mentioned, ask questions while they're fresh in your mind, and then she'll keep a list of those, and we'll move on to those, and I'll answer all of them as we go along. It's a little different format than when we do a normal presentation where there's feedback going on throughout. So if you would, just ask your questions and we'll make sure we get them answered. So let's start with a little bit about CPaT. I know many of you have been familiar with CPaT for years, but you may not know that CPaT stands for Computer Presentations and Training. That's what the acronym's for. I actually was a customer of CPaT's for many years before coming here, and I didn't know that. We're founded in 1994, and we are by far the oldest and largest provider of distance learning content and e-learning materials to the airline industry. We're known for four main things: that we create interactive and in-depth content. We are known for the size of our library of content. That includes courseware for most airline fleets, including all the Boeings, most of the Airbuses except for the 380, and all the regional fleets that are out there. We're also known for our great customer service, which is important when you're managing a distance learning company to support your trainees. And lastly, we're known as an innovator in this industry. And you can see by this slide some of the things that we've done. We were the first ones to bring digital learning to the web. We were the first one to offer an offline mobile app. We were the first ones to bring a software as a service subscription model to this industry before people paid a lot of money up front to have distance learning developed, or e-learning content developed. And then what we're most proud of, and that we're showing you today, is our CPaT Invent content management software and development software. And so we're going to focus our discussion today around Invent. So CPaT offers many different courses and services, and we organize those into four main pillars. The first pillar is Access. And Cpat Access is how CPaT is the CPaT courseware delivery and management system. Cpat Instruct, and that's where most of our courseware lives, or all of our courseware lives, actually. Those are aircraft system courses, both initial and recurrent, and transition courses. Our full complete library of general subjects, interactive diagrams, and our procedures training suites, and those include Fms Skills Trainers, 3D cockpit flow and checklist trainers, and three-dimensional exterior inspection trainers for almost every fleet that our clients have. What we're going to talk about today is our third pillar, CPaT Invent, and that is our software program that empowers trainers to create, modify, or develop new content inside of the CPaT delivery system. And lastly, Cpat Assist, and that's our 24/7 support for all of your trainees. And as we all know, a distance learning program cannot be successful without that level of support. You can't have somebody show up Monday morning and not have their distance learning completed because they didn't know their password or couldn't load the app. So we handle all of that so that your students can be successful in their training. So let's look at CPaT Invent. So what is CPaT Invent? So CPaT Invent is a first of its kind dynamic content design software platform developed specifically for airline training. And so, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're going to talk about why did we develop this. So we've been working in this industry for a long time. We have over 300 clients in the industry, airline and airline training organizations, and they've always told us what they need from a company like CPaT or a courseware provider is they need courseware that's in depth and very broad. They meaning they can train on all their one system for all their fleets and all their needs. It has to be flexible and modifiable in real time so that they can keep up with changing regulations, changing company procedures, as well as changing SOPs or OEM SOPs. But when you looked across the industry, and that included CPaT, there wasn't anything that did that, right? And so CPaT, so what we found was most of the solutions were inflexible. It was very difficult to modify, or if you needed to modify, you had to go back to the creator of the courseware for updates, which could take a lot of time and was very expensive. And many of those providers did not want to do those changes, so it was very difficult. And we all know that poor training materials leads to negative training outcomes that can be costly. One training failure or one unqualified pilot costs a lot of money, especially these days. So we sat down, we started to design our solution, and we knew that it had to be a creative solution that allowed on-demand modifications to easily maintain and create new materials and update existing materials. So that's where Invent came from. So as we talked about, Invent is a content design software program that lives inside of the CPaT delivery system. It empowers the client at the client level, trainers to tailor their own courseware or the courseware that we provide them, or create their own courseware. You can use our instructional design templates to create two-dimensional presentations or three-dimensional presentations. And I'll show you more of that, as well as access a robust library of aviation and aircraft systems graphics and audio options that include multiple languages. So with that being said, and I know I'm kind of moving quick because I'm trying to make sure that we respect your time here. Let's go ahead and jump over to the top 5 features of Invent. That way you'll get you'll be able to get to know this courseware. I'm going to start with a video that we created that will introduce each of the top features. It moves kind of quick, and when I'm doing the demonstration, I will actually go a lot slower, and I'll show you the material as we step through it. But we wanted to give you this video so that it can show you or highlight the main 5 points that we're talking about and give you a flavor of what this looks like. So don't be concerned if it's moving kind of quick. Don't try to keep up with it if you can't. So, all right. And so let's go here and we'll start the video. So I'll narrate over this so you don't have to listen to the music. So the top 5 features of Invent, we're going to start with the ability to upload PowerPoint and storyline content directly into the system. And so the developer here is actually looking for a PowerPoint package. They're going to import that. And once they have that in the system, now they don't have to go back to the source file to make changes. They're able to modify those right on the fly inside of the system. So if you have a courseware library of previously developed courses in PowerPoint or Storyline, you can import them here and keep that value. Now, you can also, the second item is you can modify our content inside of the CPaT delivery system. So here's an example of modifying a CRJ 700 slide. And so all of the CPaT content that's developed in Invent, you can modify. We know SOPs are very critical to keep current. So here's an example of modifying a 737 MAX flow. And so you can quickly do that within the system. You can create your own content using CPaT's instructional design templates, and I will go through that. And that includes those 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional environments to create new content or new lessons. Now, remember, you have all of our lessons, but you're empowered to create your own right in the system. And in there, you're able to access, while creating systems or creating lessons or changing lessons, you're able to access a robust library of images or upload your own. Here, they're uploading a A320 radio control panel from their library and inserting it into a presentation. And again, I will go slow and show you how this works right in the system, but we wanted to have you have a quick look and an overview of this. You can also
into any language.
You can also convert into any language, as he was saying. And I'll show you how that translation works. And then lastly, one of the top features is when you deliver your lessons, they're delivered, or create the lessons or modify the lessons, you can create them in 3 separate modes. The first mode is demo mode or demonstration mode, where the system the lesson provides instruction to the student. The second is practice mode, mainly used in procedures training, where the student can practice their procedure that they've learned. And the last is performance mode, perform mode, where they are tested on either the knowledge or the procedure that they've learned. And so I'll go in and show you that real quick. So with that being said, let's move on to actually getting into the system itself. And remember, submit your questions as we go along through this. And so I'm going to jump on over to the LMS now and begin to show you. I'll start by creating a lesson quickly and show you how easy that is. And so a little bit out of order of what the video was showing, but the first thing I did was I'm logging into the admin side of of what we created was a webinar LMS today called Discover LMS. And all of these features are easy or quick to use features that are available for the administrators. But I'm going to jump right to lessons because today we're focused on CPaT Invent. And remember, in Cpat Invent, you can either create new content, and that's by pressing this icon over here, add a new lesson, or you can modify any lesson that has a Cpat Invent icon next to it. And so we've uploaded some of these for me to modify today. So let's start by creating a new lesson. So I'm going to add a new lesson, and I'm going to hit create. And now I've got the first step that I need to do, which is give a title to the lesson. So I'm going to call this webinar demo. And because I want to show you some of the aircraft features, I'm going to define this as being part of a Boeing 737 MAX training program. As I mentioned, this could be delivered in perform mode, which is for credit. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it that it has a passing score of any questions or any performance that is required. You need a passing score of 80. You have some extra options where you can define a little bit about this course. You can give it meta tags, you can give it descriptions, so it's easily searchable in the administrator's library. And here, I can actually add some of my PowerPoints as either a full lesson to modify or as part of a lesson that I'm creating. So I've created a couple of slides that I want to import here. So I'm going to go lessons from PowerPoint. I'm going to go choose the file, and I've created a webinar import file here, and I'm going to open that. It's going to bring me my file, and I'm going to hit save. And now what the system is doing is it's creating for me that instructional design format of a lesson that I can begin to manipulate. It's grabbing all the assets, it's importing those PowerPoint slides that I created, and now it's beginning to set up the software itself. Now, when I import new images with a PowerPoint system, it's going to want me to define those images because they're going to go in the library. Now, if I had as I mentioned, a radio control panel, I would define this as A320 radio control panel. Or if I had any type of fleet or subject matter specific image, I would define it so it's easily searchable in the image asset library. I'm just going to select these all for today, and I'm going to just say that it's none. They're just general, and so I would give them a keyword. I'm going to say webinar, so that if I need them again, I can always go back to that, right? And so I'm going to go on down, and it's making me, actually, I got to choose none here. And now I can add it to the library. And now those images are in the library for me to use, not anybody else in the CPaT client base. They're specifically and privately kept for my use. So now we're in actually the CPaT content design software program. And in this design frame, I've got a couple of things that I wanted to go over with you. So over to the left is the slide package that is organized in proper instructional design. As we know, all lessons, we want to have a title page. So it created a title page for me. I gave it the title name, Webinar Demo. And it loaded an image because I told it was a 737 MAX. So that was my default image for 737 MAX courses. It gave me an introduction, or set up an introduction page, which I have to define. Welcome to this webinar demo lesson. It gave me an objective page. In this lesson, we're going to learn 1, 2, 3, and so I can define those. A warning page would be used for credit mode. This is a 4-credit lesson. And then it's already uploaded a couple of slides that I had in PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you how to add more slides. And then finally, a score page, a conclusion page, and an exit page. So, and then across the top are my design tools where I can add pages, I can add images, I can copy pages or remove pages. And over to the right are the specific development tools that are required for each function that I'm using. So let's start with adding a page to this lesson. So I'll go add a page. And what you're seeing is the types of pages you can add. So CPaT provided you with a couple of designs. A basic page, which is text and graphics, a 3-dimensional cockpit procedures page, which is a 3-dimensional environment, specifically in this case for the 737 MAX, a 3-dimensional exterior environment for you to work in, and that could be used for walkarounds, it could be used for maintenance, it could be used for anything. An FMS Skills emulator, or a functional FMS system that you can utilize to do FMS training, and quiz pages for you to develop quizzes that can be used as knowledge tests, or as just simple knowledge tests in a lesson, or for actually 4-credit tests. So let's go on over here. We'll add a basic page. So today I'm going to add a basic page. And as you can see, we provided a number of pre-designed templates as well as a custom template for you to customize and do it any way you like. I'm going to go ahead and add a simple single graphics slide here. It added the slide here. I'm just going to give it a title. It's something simple. I'm going to say demo page 1, something simple. Now it's given me a default image, and it's given me a text block over here to work in. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit the image. And now I'm bringing up the asset library. And in this asset library, I've got almost well over 10,000 images of CPaT material. That includes everything for the 737 MAX that we have aircraft systems wise, all of our general subjects images, runways, clouds, storms, as well as anything that you uploaded and have in your library. And that includes images, that includes videos, that includes PDFs, or any other materials that you can upload to this library. So today, I just wanted to add an image, and because there's so many images here, I'm going to go I'm going to select Boeing. I'm going to select model 737 MAX. I'm going to select variant -8, and I can see I got 68 pages of images. Well, I wanted to add something from the cockpit. Let's say I'm specifically searching for an image, and I would use that. And now I've got a number of images from the CPaT library that are available to the developers to add to the page. So I've got my image here. I can now add my text, and again, in time, I would actually, for the concise of time, I'm just going to show you how text would work. I've got all the ability to annotate my images, as well as all the formatting tools to format my text. I can add my narration, which I'll show you more later. And I can actually, I can add my text to my narration, and I can have that narrated in both English or a second language if you like. As I mentioned, there are many other types of pages that we can add. We can also add a three-dimensional page, which is a very powerful teaching tool. So I just wanted to show you, before I move on from this feature, the ability to load a scene here. And so now I've got the 737 MAX, and let's say we had a new procedure we want to discuss on testing the oxygen panel. And so I can create a lesson around this new procedure using this hotspot, placing it over the oxygen panel, defining the hotspot, and then giving an objective or enabling objective, or telling them the procedure itself on testing that. So you have access to all of this material within CPaT Invent. So that's how you create a lesson. As I mentioned, we uploaded material to our lesson. So let's go take a look at one of those PowerPoints that I uploaded. So it uploaded for me the title frame, it uploaded me my text frame, and it uploaded for me the images that I had inside of my my PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this this title, I'm going to go ahead and modify it slightly because it's a little bit big. I can change the position of it. I can change many different things. Here, I'm going to change the formatting of the text. I'm going to center it. I'm going to move it down a little bit. I'm going to separate it. And so I've got all the formatting tools that I need inside of this library, or inside of this software, to be able to create and design material inside of the CPaT system, as well as import my PowerPoint and storyline materials, modify them here without ever having to go find that file back on my computer, change it there, and then import it here. All right. So so now, as we talked about, we're able to create new content. We're able to upload content that we need in that creation. And as we mentioned, the courseware can be delivered. The third point is the courseware can be delivered in 3 modes. And this is very important. It's a kind of a unique feature that CPaT has designed into its software management program here. And so, give you an example. So I want to create one lesson for a after start flow. And so I need to create that lesson and I want it to be created in demonstration mode. And in demonstration mode, the system will teach me the after start flow. And so for the slides that would be in the demonstration package of the lesson, I would select the slides that are required. So a title page is required in the demonstration presentation. It's also required in the practice presentation and in the perform presentation. But so is the introduction page. So if I go to the introduction page, which I would have defined, I can select which mode here on the developer tools that this slide would be in. But in the objective page, I may have one objective page for the demo mode. In this objective of this lesson is the system is going to teach you the after start flow. I may create a new objective page that would be only for the practice lessons, and that would be this. The objective of this lesson is to practice. So I'd have a whole additional objective page for that lesson. And the same with perform mode. I would have a separate objective page for the perform mode. Now what I've done is I've created really 3 lessons. I've created one lesson that can be delivered in 3 different modes to my students without having to create multiple lessons across. So very, very effective use of tools and development time to create both instructional lessons, practice lessons, and testing lessons. So now, as we mentioned, the 4th feature we talked about was the ability to narrate or translate our material or your material into over 100 languages and dialects around the world. And as I mentioned, I was going to get back to showing you how we narrate things here. And so, let's go ahead and look at one of my other slides that I imported, and that is a slide about narration. So I'm gonna reformat this PowerPoint slide a little bit so that it fits better in my page here. Oh, sorry, there we go. And I'll actually go down one more. There we go. And so what I've got is an image here, and when you import your PowerPoints or your storylines, what'll happen is anything that's in your notes page will end up in the narration text box. And so what I have is a short narration here that's in my text box, and I want to narrate that in English first. So I can do it 2 ways. I can upload an MP3 audio of myself or one of my instructors or professional voice reading this narration. Or I can use the CPaT text-to-speech system, and I can say to it, okay, I've got this narration. I want it in English. I've got a number of voice choices. I can select any one of them. I'm going to go ahead and select Guy, and we're going to go ahead and save that. So now I've got my English text and I've got my English narration set up. But let's say I have somebody that has English as a second language, and we always instruct in English for aviation, but you may have people that are not required to do that. They may be ground handling folks or people in other parts of the company, or you have a young person that has never been through an aviation systems course, and you may want them to be able to reference back to native tongue so that English as a second language students have that ability to cross-reference for better comprehension of very complex materials. So I'm going to go ahead and add alternative text. And now I've got a second language coming. I'm going to select here. Let's go ahead and go with Spanish on this one, since there we go. And now I'm going to translate this the text to Spanish. So I've now translated in box 2 or language 2 the materials into Spanish. But now I've got to actually narrate that into Spanish. And so I'm going to go to my audio options, and I'm going to go text to speech. And I'm going to actually, as many of you who've used digital audio know, sometimes you have to adjust your text to match. So an example, if I was to type Boeing 737 here, it would read Boeing 737 instead of Boeing 737. So to make that work, what I do is I create a space between the 7 and the 37. Again, I know it's very simple for many of you who have worked in this for a long time, and so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now it's saved. I'm actually going to go back to my English because I actually missed modifying the text to speech on that. And let me just do this one for the English version. And all right. And so we'll get to an example so you can see it here. And I'm going to hit save again. And I'm going to go up. And one more thing I have to do is I actually have to tell it, tell the title pages that I have Spanish as a second language, so that the student will be able to see a label that allows them to check that. So I'm going to go ahead and load that. I'm going to hit save, and I will. Now let's take a look at what that looks like from a student's perspective. So we'll start with the English version, and then I'll show you the Spanish version.
CPaT Invent allows you to add a second language selection to any presentation. While most aviation training is presented in English, there are a lot of benefits for allowing ESL students to review courseware in their native language. Cpat Invent will translate both the narration text and audio into over 100 languages and dialects.
So so as a student, now this may be a complex, electrical diagram system, or maybe hydraulics, fuel, upset prevention and recovery training, could be anything. Or it could just be a lesson that I want to create in both English and Spanish for my contractors or for my support staff. For me to select the other language, I just come down here and I select Spanish as the second one, and now you'll hear the Spanish narration.
CPaT Invent permite agregar una selección de segundo idioma a cualquier presentación.
So this is a very, very effective tool for teaching your students or teaching students or staff around the world that have other language needs. So I'm going to go ahead and go back now. We've talked about creating content courseware inside of Cpat Invent. We've talked about importing PowerPoints or storylines. We've talked about the three modes: demonstration mode, practice mode, and perform mode. And now we've talked about the translation of training materials. But I want to go ahead and show you how to now modify an existing program. Now that, remember, Cpat Invent empowers you to modify CPaT courseware as well as your courseware that you've created yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this system and jump back to the admin panel. And as I mentioned before, when you go to modify a program, you're looking for courses or lessons that have the Cpat Invent icon next to them. So I've got the UPRT course, aerodynamics course here. I'm going to modify this. And this was created by Cpat. And so it is a lesson that so an example, let's say your airline has some regulatory or company instructional culture that would like to teach UPRT aerodynamics differently than the way that Cpat designed it or created it inside of the lesson. So you're empowered to change that. Now we can either duplicate the lesson, which means let's say I'm creating a lesson today, but I've got to create multiple formats of that lesson for different departments, and I got to use a lot of the same materials. I may duplicate that lesson multiple times so I don't have to keep redoing stuff. In this version, or in this situation, I want to create a new version or an updated version of UPRT. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new version of the UPRT lesson. And what it's going to do is it's going to spend a few minutes going through and modifying or creating a new version of the Cpat UPRT aerodynamic system for you to be able to go in and change the audio, the graphics, the text, and the narration block. You can completely change. You can add slides. You can delete slides. You can rearrange slides. So now what it's done is it's created for me the new version. Now we have a couple of different ways that lessons are organized. Published lessons are lessons that are assignable by the administrator of students. They've been vetted. They're cleared to be assigned. Drafts are lessons that have already been developed, but are maybe going through the approval process or review process before they're published. In development, that's where we're working, right? So when we develop new materials, they live in the in development folder. And then archive folder is where you take older versions of materials and you move them into the archive. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Invent editing tool, and I'm going to open up the UPRT aerodynamics lesson. It's taking a moment to grab everything that I need. And as you can see, all of the slides that we've developed for UPRT are here for us to modify, including the questions. And so you're empowered at any time to take our stock courses and change them in any ways that you would feel is important or required by your training. So I can do a couple of things here. I can go in, I can change the narration. Let's say the way that we talk about this primary flight display is a little bit different than the way that you teach it. So you may want to go in here and change the narration. You may want to change the text on the screen and modify this or add bullet points. You can add annotations, add an arrow for to highlight some point or point out things. You can change the graphic as we talked about before. And so I can go in here and make any changes I like using this the Cpat Invent editing tools to update any course I would like, whether that's course of Cpat or one that I created. So here's an example. I can change the slides around. I can add new slides to this. Again, we're in a two-dimensional page system because this is not a procedures course. But if I wanted to, let's say there was something I wanted to expound on. I liked all the slides we have, but I wanted to go in and add. I can go ahead and here and add a page or add some more questions to this lesson. So that's a quick overview on how you would edit current content. So I've been moving kind of quick and I've been talking for a long time. So I want to get to your questions, and I can see there are some questions there. And so I'm going to go ahead and go on back to the presentation. And as a quick summary, as we talked about, we talked about how to create your own content, did a quick review of that, how to upload existing PowerPoint and storyline content, how to leverage the 3 lesson modes, demo, practice, and perform. We talked about how you can quickly and easily translate content into multiple languages. And I showed you a brief overview of how to modify existing content, whether that's CPAT created content or your own content. So again, I've been moving and talking quickly for about 40 minutes. So I want to get to your questions so we can answer the things that you want to know about this system. So I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the Q&A slide, and I'll ask Amy, and I'd like to introduce Kent Morrison, our president, and Victoria, our manager of customer success, to the meeting. They'll be on your screen here in a second. So we're all together to answer your questions. Amy will start with the questions, and we'll do our very best to give you answers. If you have follow-up on that, don't forget to continue to ask the questions in the queue. So Amy, what questions do we have today?
All right, so just a quick reminder for everybody that the questions can be submitted if you just open that Q&A bubble there at the bottom of your screen. You have the ability to open the box to submit, view questions, as well as upvote any questions that have come in from other attendees. If we run out of time to address everything, please include your name in the Q&A questions so that we can follow up after this webinar. Additionally, we'll give you Greg's contact information, so you feel free to contact him directly at any time after our seminar with questions or for more information. So moving on to the questions, we do have a few that have come in so far, Greg. And so the first one is that in the case of aircrafts like the B777 or B787, is there an option to add some interaction with the EFB electronic flight bag in the FMS lessons?
Okay, so the answer is always going to be yes. We're going to do our best to work with you on that. So the FMS lessons that we have, the FMS skills lessons, are an emulator, and they can emulate any function that lives inside the FMS, whether that's a CPDLC function, or if an EFB function lives inside of the FMS CDU, that can be done. Now, we've created other lessons in the past that emulate EFB functions or even electronic checklist functions. So I'll let Kent expound on that a little bit, but any type of interactive lesson, as you know, and we agree, is very valuable. So we would work with you. If it's not incorporated inside the FMS lesson, it could be created as a separate, but go ahead, Kent.
So what you would do in this case is you would take your FMS lesson that you had a component of the electronic flight bag that you wanted to add to it, and you would add an additional slide and take some graphics, which could even be actual, imagery you take from your electronic flight bag and put it into the CPAT environment and you could develop interactivity in those pages so that you could go from page to page. So, you know, I'm not being a pilot. I know what an electronic flight bag is. I don't know how it operates. So some of my examples might not be entirely, you know, correct. But if you had something where the electronic flight bag, you did something on it and it gave you a value that you then needed to enter into the FMS, you could emulate yourself by using imagery and interactivity, the electronic flight bag interface on a page, and get your value, and then go to a FMS page that we've created with the emulator and edit it so that it is expecting you to put that value into the proper place. And so if there was a situation where you might have a value where you need to put in the scratch pad and put into one of the input fields, you could easily do that. So, you know, that's the power of using Invent, where we've created this so that you can expand it beyond what we've added to meet exactly the training requirements that you need.
For something like that, Kent, what I would suggest is, we sometimes we're going to get very unique requirements from our clients that require interactivity on this section or something that we haven't thought about. You know, believe me, we've done a lot of work on our 777 procedures. That's the FMS. The three-dimensional environment for the cockpit, as well as the three-dimensional exterior. But what I'd be very interested in seeing maybe some screenshots or a couple of pictures of the EFB that you're talking about, sir. And you know, you're at the end of this, you'll have my email. Why don't you send me a little bit more detailed question and maybe a picture or two, and we'll give you really specific answers. It's hard to give specific answers without actually seeing it. But I think you'll be very happy to have a little bit more specific information and based on this question. So, all right, Amy, okay. What is our next question?
Yeah, so we have one that's come through that's got a couple of upvotes. So a couple people interested in this one. Is there a way to limit the search to just images that my company has uploaded? So I think this goes back to that asset library demonstration, Greg.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the LMS here, and I'm going to ask Miss Victoria, our success manager, to kind of talk about the different ways that we can search images. So I'm going to go here. Actually, I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me get back to our slide package here and click on that. So Victoria, the question is, if I'm in a lesson such as why don't I just modify, well, actually I can go back to this in development lesson that I was working on as the web demo. All right, I'll go and open this web demo lesson. And so the question is, if I want to search imagery in the asset library, how can I just search the stuff that I've uploaded?
Well, if you can actually click on that drop down that says current lesson, you'll see the third item below that tab says my uploads. So go ahead, if Captain Greg, if you could click on my uploads, then you'll see all the ones that not just you, but anyone at your company with an Invent license has uploaded to the asset library. So maybe you're taking over that role from somebody else, or maybe you're sharing the Invent development with other people, and you can access all the images that everybody at your company has uploaded.
Yeah, and that's a good point. CPaT, so all of our clients have access to the complete CPaT image library. And right now there's over 4,000 pages of images. As more and more of our aircraft systems courses make it into Invent, this will expand dramatically. So having a good search tool to be able to search by current lesson, by recently uploaded, by my uploads, by all lessons, you can search by the manufacturer, of course, by the model, by the variants. You can search by keywords. And so there's many different ways to organize this and manage your library. But it all comes down to also, when you upload an image, to make sure that you define that image with a couple of very good keywords and meta tags, so that while especially if you get to use this system, some of our clients use this system every day and they have hundreds and hundreds of images. And so they've created their own tags to it so that those images are easily searchable. All right. So hopefully we answered your question there. Amy, what other questions do we have?
Yeah, so this one comes in and they're wanting to know, how do I delete in development lessons that are no longer needed?
Okay, so I'm going to actually pass that to Kent. So, I know that that is let me just go here. I know that that's something that deleting lessons when we're in development. Let me go to the admin panel.
So let me go ahead and begin to address that as Greg goes through. When we first released Invent, we did have the capability to delete lessons that were in development. And some of our early adopters started having problems where lessons got deleted, that they weren't ready to be deleted. And so what we decided was to err on the side of caution. But then that creates this big list of lessons that you may not need. So right now, the simplest way to do that is you make it a draft, you publish it, and then you archive it from there. While we work with customers to find out what is the best way to delete an in-development lesson, because what would happen is people would really not want to delete the lesson. They want to delete just that version of the lesson. And so it became one of those challenges where we felt like we needed to err on the side of caution. And we're constantly listening to customer feedback to make sure that when we do re-enable the ability to delete an in-development lesson, it responds the way the customers expect it to. And that was the challenge at the beginning. So there is a way, like I said, you make it a draft, publish it, and then you can archive it from there.
So Ken, if I just make sure I understand what you're saying, if the reason that we want to be careful about deleting lessons, and what we found was many of our clients like the feature of they don't want to have too much in this in development folder. And so the problem we were seeing was once you delete it, you can't go back, and people were making these mistakes. So the option was to publish it to a draft and then archive it from there. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then you can always recover it from the archive.
Yeah. So the archive kind of becomes, in a way, a dustbin for unused materials, whether those were previously published, or is that sort of a good description of it?
That's correct.
All right. So hopefully that's a good solution for our clients' need there. Amy, what other questions do we have?
Okay, so somebody had put the question in there, there's a lot of features that Invent has, and what is the best way to learn how to use all the features most efficiently?
Okay, so I agree with you that that Invent is a powerful tool with a lot of features, and like most of us that use software in our lives, we don't know. Like I use Excel every day. I don't know half the things that it can do for me. But we sure don't want that to happen here with Invent. So our production and success teams have created not only a video course for you to go through, but they also do instructional lessons and webinars. So I'm going to give this to Victoria to talk about how people learn comprehensively all the things that Invent can do, and so that they're getting the most value out of it.
Well, Greg, as you said, we do have those Invent developer courses. So that's kind of a general overview. We also have webinars, and on cpat.com's website, we actually have recordings from previous webinars. So we have webinars on both Invent and also the LMS. And we try to do a webinar about once a month on either the LMS or Invent. So you can constantly check back there to see what's new. And if you do have any other questions, that is what the client services, client success team is for. We are available to answer your questions. We can also schedule a one-on-one call to go over any questions that you have, go through Invent. And I would also suggest circling back around to that cpat.com website. If you're just curious about an overview of Invent, and you want to know more, we have a getting started with Invent video right there. That is,
let me show them where that. So here's our website. Where would that live?
Actually, if you click that green view demo button right in the center of the screen, right there. And then if you scroll down, there is a Cpat Inspire on-demand webinar section.
So lots of training tools here, as well as hands-on training at your webinars, as well as one-on-one training during the onboarding and follow-up for our clients. And Amy's going to kill me, but also for something that we haven't announced yet, we'll be hosting a user conference in 2023 here in Houston, where all our clients will be coming to Houston, and a big portion of that will be best practices, how people use Invent, how people use the system to deliver, modify, and create content. It'll be a 2-day event with a lot of fun things to be done at night. So I know Amy's going to yell at me later for announcing that, but I wanted you all to know first so that we're here. But so Amy, if you're not off the floor from shock, can we go to the next question?
Yeah, so we've got about 9 minutes left of our scheduled webinar. We've got 3 questions we'd like to try to get through in that amount of time. If you're still thinking about questions, don't forget to just click on that Q&A bubble at the bottom of your screen and get them submitted, and or take a look at what's in there already for upvote. So someone's coming in asking about, does Invent allow me to modify the FMS Skills Trainers?
So yes, the Invent allows you to modify any of the courses that are created in Invent. So let me go over there real quick, and I'll show you. Make sure that I have a lesson here. So let's take a look at the lessons. I'm not positive that I have a published lesson for FMS Skills Trainer in this LMS. So as I mentioned, anything that is has an icon here would be modifiable. And I don't think I have flows and 3-dimensional flows. So yes, you can go into the FMS lesson and modify it. So I'll give you some examples of how people modify that. So when we build the FMS Skills Trainer, and the FMS Skills Trainer, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's not a free play FMS trainer. It's meant to be a step-by-step instructional device that teaches you the proper SOPs of a specific skill. And we've created for most aircraft fleets a suite of skills that would include initializing the FMS, loading the flight plan, preparing the departure, functions like build a hold, intercept an airway, set up the approach and arrival. All of those are in there. They're built to OEM specifications, whether that's Boeing or Airbus or any of the regional fleets. And then we created flight plans around that. Let's say to fly from Los Angeles to Houston. But you may say, well, our scripted training is always from Paris to London Heathrow, or from New York to Chicago. You can go in there and you can modify all of the procedures that we created inside of there by changing the orders of the steps, changing the parameters of the flight plan. Plus, you can add additional procedures. And now where the most powerful thing is, whether that's the FMS Skills Trainer, whether that's the Cockpit Flow Trainer, or whether that's the Walk Around Trainer, is there's nothing worse than having a procedures training tool that doesn't reflect your current SOPs. So you're completely empowered to change the order of your SOPs, the orders of the steps, delete steps, add steps, modify steps, so that this material is always relevant and accurate to your current SOPs. And so that's very, very important. So the answer simply is yes, you can modify the FMS Skills Trainer and create your own skills inside of the FMS Skills Trainer.
Okay.
Amy,
So
what are the questions?
We have I think we have time to answer both of the final questions. Just a quick question on pricing, and then our final question will be another content related question. So for pricing, is Invent included with Cpat subscription pricing, or is it a separate cost?
So we created Invent in 2020. Well, we launched it in 2020, really became an effective tool in 2021 for our clients. Since we've launched Invent, it is included in all of our subscriptions. If there's a previous contract that is going to renewal, we'll work to include that in the pricing so that it is not an additional cost. It's meant to be a way for you to save money by quickly and powerfully creating training materials, as well as materials, procedures materials that'll lead to positive training outcomes and save the company money. And then the last question.
Yep. So we actually had one more sneak in, so I think we have time to do both. This one is, does the procedures FMS setup training include using aero data to set up takeoff power, including reduced takeoff thrust?
Okay, and so let's go back to our discussion about the FMS Skills Trainer. The FMS Skills Trainer is an emulator, so it doesn't have a database behind it. So when you're creating, or if you were to create a performance lesson, example for reduced thrust, you can define all of the parameters right there. And so let's say you're going to have one lesson that is takeoff procedures, and you wanted it to talk about max power. You would modify that emulator to show on the performance page max power is set. In another lesson, you may want to show reduced thrust, and so you can define that in there. But remember, it doesn't have a database behind it. It's meant to emulate the CDU and emulate the displays, so that the student can step by step learn the material and be instructed in demo mode. Then they can practice that skill. And then as a training manager, I can assign them the procedure suite, and then they could take it in perform mode or test mode. And I would have documentation that knows this student understands and knows the procedures before I send them to simulator. We've all spent many hours trying to teach somebody a hold inside a full motion simulator when they should have known that prior. Free play trainers, free play FMS trainers are fantastic, but they're simulators, and most of the time they don't give instruction. So you still need an instructor to teach the SOPs. This is meant to be the instructor and the practice environment before the test. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yep. So final question, and then Greg, when you're finished this question, you can kind of do your closing greeting, and then we just have a final note. Can I incorporate videos that we have recorded in the simulator?
Oh, very good. So this is one of those best practices things that I wanted to make sure we talked about. So we see a lot of our clients do this. CPaT provides a lot of academic instructional materials, such as all the ground school material you need for, let's use an initial Boeing 737 MAX course. So that course, again, is everything I need for the initial aircraft systems, some general subjects, plus what you can create. So we see a lot of our airlines and 142s, especially ones that are training people that are at their first jet. What they'll do is they'll create a ground school set of lessons that uses our courseware. They'll use the procedure suites to do some training, such as the FMS skills, the flows and checklists, and the walk around. But then they'll create their own specific simulator briefing folders, like what you're talking about. And in that folder, let's say simulator day 1, right? Introduction to the aircraft, right? And in that folder would be the instructor's presentation, so the student can know what's being talked about, and 4 or 5 videos of the main tasks that'll be taught in that simulator session. So, like example, simulator day 4, a lot of times is single engine day. So in there, I'll have the instructor briefing. I'll have aborted takeoff procedures, and I'll have a video of that. I'll have a V1 cut video of that. Single engine ILS, single engine go around, single engine landing, let's say. And you have those in there, and we're dealing with a lot of generations that are used to the Xbox world. So when we look at our training organizations or our airlines that create this, it's shocking how much the students will watch those videos prior to going to simulator. They'll watch them 25 times. Sort of like where when I was learning to fly, I would sit in front of a poster in my hotel room and chair fly. I visualized in my head. These tools allow you to visualize on the screen and walk through the processes. So I went a little bit long here. I know we're at the end of our session. So Amy, I want to give it back to you. I really want to say thank you to everyone for all of your time today and all of your fantastic questions. Remember, let me go back to my apologies on the slide. I'm not as good as Amy on managing my slide package here, but I wanted to make sure on the screen here is my contact details. You can contact me anytime or contact any of us at CPaT. We're happy to let you play with this stuff. We're happy to let you use it. We hope this had value to you. We will follow up on any questions that you come up with over the next day or two. And we're also, as we mentioned, happy to set up a trial LMS for you to play with this stuff. But let me pass it back to Amy. And again, thank you very much for your time. I know you're all very busy and we really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you once again to everyone for joining. If your question did not get answered, like Greg said, we can contact you after this webinar, or you may feel free to contact him directly. His contact information is right there on the slide. Last but not least, please don't forget to follow us on social media channels to stay up to date with all of CPAT's latest news and updates. And with that, we will say goodbye, everyone, and stay safe.
All right, everyone have a good day. Thank you.